Hi, everyone. Welcome to this year's International Euphonium Summit Living History Series. I'm your host, Nicholas Hofter von Heide, and with us today is Garrett Dexter, and it's really surreal. We're almost at the entire euphonium baritone section for the Princeton brass band. You can find more at internationaleuphoniumsummit.com/Garrett, GARRETT Dexter, for more information on where to find out information on Princeton brass band, but also other members like Carson De La Rosa, which is part of our cohort, and Aaron Vanderweel, and soon Dr. Laura Fallon. Am I saying that right?
Yes, Laura
Okay,
Fallon.
perfect. Okay, perfect. And being able to, there's one more in the section that I don't think I've interviewed yet. Um,
Yes, Megan Alexander is the first euphonium player.
okay,
Um,
so when you go back and say, hey, you know, Nicholas mentioned that you haven't booked an interview yet. Hint, hint. You got to represent Princeton Brass Band.
I'll see her tonight.
Oh, awesome. Man, that was an epic performance with a stout program yesterday at Rutgers. Congrats to Aaron Vanderweel, part of our cohort, who did a smashing performance of all the pieces. And then the backup, the actual band, with Garrett Dexter, Carson, and Laura, and just the crew there. Fantastic job, y'all.
Thank you very much. We saw the entire program that Aaron was doing, Professor Vanderweel. And wow, that is hefty. And he was very excited because he was just able to do whatever music he wanted. And it was very cool. His thought process on the program was kind of taking the listeners through the history of euphonium, starting with the Horowitz and Simone Mantia with Enduring Young Charms and moving through the UFO concerto and the Cosma and just talking how euphonium progressed and stuff. So thank you very much. I was very delighted to hear that I was offered the opportunity to play in his recital. Is very it felt great. It was a great honor.
Okay, so those of you that don't have yet to hear the podcast segment, and it'll be coming out much after the YouTube video gets uploaded, because I tend to have been uploading the YouTubes a lot quicker than any of the podcasts, by the way. So once that's uploaded, you'll find your very favorite podcast station. If not, just let me know which one to start putting them on, like Spotify or Apple, iTunes, or Google Podcast, or whatever. I mean, all the help I could need, right? But if you haven't listened to the podcast yet of Garrett Dexter and us going over just the hour of content before this like initial like series for him, and it was we go through a lot of amazing like brainstorming sessions. You'd call that brainstorming, yeah?
Of course. Oh yeah, there's a lot of segments we went off on, but all very good. But oh yeah, lots of brainstorming.
We even cover karate. So just go over and find that out on his site, as well as subscribe, like, and follow what we're doing here on the Living History series, and continue watching the segments thereafter. So thank you so much for joining us, Garrett.
Thank you for having me. It really is an honor. I love being a part of the entire euphonium community and helping in any way that I can. And I think it's also, great for me as well to learn and to be involved in the community more. So in any way I can help, thank you for having me.
Well, let's dive in, because I mean, being a middle school band director, as well as the jazz band middle school band director and the high school marching band director, fantastic way to kind of just jump in. But with that experience, you know, just graduating, what, 3 years ago from IU, and we'll get into all of that in later segments. When did you start music?
Started music and band officially in fifth grade. That's when our school district began. Um, my first inspiration to start was actually from my grandfather on my mom's side. He was a professional jazz saxophonist in Rhode Island. Um, he would also play flute, clarinet, all that stuff. And I remember seeing pictures of him at my mother's house. And he was a great inspiration to me. And I wanted to be a saxophonist like him originally. That was my first goal. So when I started in fifth grade, you had to play clarinet for a year to do saxophone. So I played clarinet a year actually. When I got to sixth grade, I didn't like the clarinet. I wasn't feeling saxophone, and I actually wanted to be a trumpet player. And then I remember my music teacher yelled at me, screamed at me in front of everyone when I asked to switch. She said, "quote There are too many, or there's too many bad trumpet players already. You have," which, ouch, that one hit. So she said I could either do French horn or baritone. Which now thinking as a band director, like of course those are the two she said I could do because that's what we always need more of.
Not
So
cowbell?
yeah, just like always use more cowbell. Um, so she said I was going to get a demo lesson on either one I could choose. First, I did a demo lesson on baritone. Absolutely loved it from the first second. I also owe a lot of that to my teacher, Mr. Conrad, Mr. Jeff Conrad. He was a tuba player himself, and I just really gravitated towards him and his teaching. So I didn't even want to do a demo lesson on French horn. I said I'm sticking with baritone, and that's where it began, and that was in sixth grade.
Okay, so
Um,
Jeff Conrad, who's Jeff in all the realm of?
yeah, so Jeff Conrad, he's actually right now the head director of bands at Roxbury High School in Morris County, New Jersey. That is actually the job Dr. Todd Nichols had, and Dr. Todd Nichols is a big name here in New Jersey. Uh, he's the director of bands at Rutgers University, so he oversees all the bands at Rutgers. And now that is his past job is now Mr. Jeff Conrad's. He was a tuba player. He started at William Patterson University on tuba. I think he double majored, and then he went to Eastman. I forget the tuba player professor there. It's losing me right now, but he went to Eastman for tuba. Still involved in the community, and he actually taught my first lesson teacher, Ray Henriksen, when he was in school. So Jeff Conrad is one of my first teachers and one of my first inspirations, and still is to this day. Still in good connections and good relations.
That's awesome. So was it baritone or was it euphonium? As we've progressed in this summit, there are two different and stark differently a very big difference between baritone and euphonium, and we've covered this especially in light of brass band talk and stuff like that. So most kids like myself, so baritone, right?
It was a baritone horn, yes. And then when I went to seventh grade, I remember I got a school instrument uh, to practice over the summer before seventh grade. And I remember opening up the case. I'm like, this is not a baritone. It was a euphonium, but I had no idea what it was. And I remember emailing because I was never told. I emailed Mr. Conrad. I said, so there's something wrong with this baritone. He said, oh, it's actually called a euphonium. Look it up. And I was like, what the heck is a euphonia, man? I didn't even know how to say it. I looked up at these YouTube videos. I'm like, okay, I guess this is what I play now. And um, I thought that was so funny.
Let's
Yeah.
dive into that. That's really curious. So you went home fifth grade, and you'd bring home the clarinet every single day. And whether or not you practice, I don't know.
I did. Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay, cool. So that's cool that you became a middle school band director, though, because that really fits well with the woodwind techniques. And we'll
Hmm.
probably talk about that more in probably the third or fourth in series here. and then you went in sixth grade and you picked up a baritone. What was it like when you made that switch? And instead of bringing home a clarinet, or did you still bring home the clarinet and now a baritone?
I did not pick up clarinet anymore. It's just straight to baritone. I would bring it back and forth from home. I can't remember. I think we would have like a home baritone and like a school baritone, but I think that was actually just for the tubas. I think I brought it back and forth. It's escaping me right now. But of course, kids at that age, they get a new instrument and it's like, getting a new puppy. It's euphoric feelings, great rush, excited. Um, Actually for a while, I totally forgot about this. Like my parents actually reminded me when I was in college that like I almost quit multiple times. I just didn't think I was getting better at baritone in sixth grade because you'd still have pull-out lessons throughout the school day once a week, and I actually wasn't one of the better ones. And of course, I was starting later than a bunch of students, but I was I was not one of the top performers in the section for a while. And I used to, after lessons, go to Mr. Conrad, I'd be like, Mr. Conrad, I don't think I'm good enough to do this anymore. And he always kept saying, just give us some time. Just I'll see you tomorrow. I'll see you next time. Like you're fine. Don't worry about it. Like he kind of knew that it was ridiculous and knew it wasn't gonna be an issue. Somehow saw something, way back then, and I guess it paid off. But yeah, so I had ups and downs that year, but once I hit seventh grade or even the end of sixth grade, it was off and running. And I guess that was only a fleeting moment, maybe just at the beginning, beginning instrument frustrations, you're learning how to buzz, learning how to make a sound, all of that.
So, what was it like practicing at home and your parents having to adjust from listening to the clarinet? I mean, your grandfather played music, so it's not like your mom hasn't heard music or played in the home, maybe. I don't know, but what was it like for you adjusting to playing a wood instrument to brass in the dynamic shift in just the bombastic baritone to a wood instrument?
A lot more sound. Yes, yes, yes. My parents were always extremely supportive. I never even thought about it because they were always just so accepting of it. I maybe to them they just thought of it like, oh, like doing homework. It's like studying, but it was never an issue. I would usually just practice in my room. I think after a while I would move to the basement. But yeah, it was never an issue, that whenever you wanted, like when I got older in high school and I got a practice mute and stuff, I could practice later in the night, even when they're sleeping. But of course, I'm a night owl, so I like to practice late. Back then, I think I just practiced right after school. And, I was only in sixth grade, so it wasn't, too many hours or anything. It was maybe an hour at a time. But it was very supportive, never an issue. And I always really appreciated that that was just the standard.
So you went to from baritone to euphonium for seventh grade. How was that shift, and kind of where did you? What was it like, kind of listening to the brassy to the mellow euphonium, like that gorgeous melodious tone quality instead of so brassy?
Right. Yeah. I don't even know if I realized at the time, just how different they are. In sound quality at least, because I was probably focused on using my right hand instead of my left hand. That's probably what I was, or, not left or right, but, hand placement and the way I think of the valves back then was very alien to me because, I was thinking this way on the front as opposed to on top. Um, but, you know, I started taking private lessons right in seventh grade. So I found out fairly quickly after, getting past the schematics of the actual instrument, uh, like this is a legit, this thing packs a punch as far as what it's capable of and the sound it can put out. Like it's not just some blasting, I'm gonna make fun of trombones here, but I think I'm allowed to because I play trombone. just how like screamo it can get. It's like there's really a lot of different possibilities in dexterity the euphonium can provide. And I think I found that out pretty quickly, especially when I started taking lessons.
Well, that's cool. So, taking the jazz aspect of your family history, when did you start like listening to actual jazz music? Was that before fifth grade?
Listening to actual jazz, I think it was probably not before fifth grade. It was more just knowing, excuse me, more just knowing that my grandfather was a jazz musician and seeing pictures and, seeing the instruments that always I wanted to be like him. It wasn't so much of the listening aspect until I think like, like sixth, seventh grade, he would play records for me where I would hear jazz music of, a bunch of jazz saxophonists he admired and listened to. And then of course jazz band started in seventh grade, and I was like, boom, that's exactly um, what I wanted to get involved in. I didn't know much about jazz when I first auditioned. I didn't know how to play swung or anything, so I was teaching myself, and I would listen to the eighth graders above me, and I was like, okay, they're kind of playing, this stuff a little differently. Figure all that out on my own before the audition, and then when I got into jazz, I'm like, oh, this is, a whole different ballpark. And now I can kind of see where my grandfather's coming from, stuff like that. Um, so it was a little bit more of a discovery by myself. And then I was able to reconvene with my grandfather later when I found out more.
That's cool. So when you went so going on from seventh grade to eighth grade and realizing about the jazz band, is that when you picked up trombone then as well?
I didn't pick up trombone until freshman year of college, actually. I played jazz band on euphonium, and my
That's
teacher,
cool.
yeah, yeah. And my teacher actually told me that oh yeah, we'll teach you trombone. Like, don't worry, we'll teach you soon. We'll teach you soon. And just never got around to it. I was fine playing it on euphonium, whatever. It's middle school jazz band. And then I was told I was going to get taught trombone from, in a lesson or something. But I was pretty much just handed a trombone freshman year in the lowest jazz band and was told, figure it out. So I spent some many hours at home just being like, how does this thing work? How do positions work? And even to this day, I've never taken a trombone lesson. I've been completely self-taught on trombone, and yeah, it's kind of funny how that worked out.
Okay,
um
so we're gonna cover that in the Living History series when you go to IU.
sure, sure.
The brass techniques, because I'm curious, and hopefully I remember. I'll probably have to listen to this. So trombone, you didn't learn till your freshman year in college.
Sorry, freshman year in high school. Sorry
Okay,
if I
okay,
said that
cool.
incorrect, my bad.
Oh, that's cool. That would have been for a really interesting discussion.
Oh yeah.
That's cool. So we'll jump in on that. So high school, uh, fresh. That's fascinating. So when you were in middle school jazz band, did you know of any jazz euphonium players yet?
I did not. No, I was like, I knew it was a little out of the ordinary, not, what was probably typical at the time. I was like, it'd probably be nice to learn trombone down the road. This isn't a very typical jazz, instrument. But no, I didn't know much about it really.
Hmm. Okay, so those that are interested in learning more about, here's a really good question. Uh, do you do you have any euphoniums in your jazz band right now?
In my jazz band right now, I last year we don't start jazz band until after marching band this year, so I'll have to see what happens. Last year I did. One of my euphoniums, my region man euphonium, switched to trombone, and he did that pretty well. And I taught him lessons. Unlike my teachers, I actually helped him in that process. But I did have another euphonium player, and she just stayed on euphonium, and that was fine.
That's cool. Have you let them listen to any Rich Madison or Gail Robertson or any of the jazzers out there?
Sorry, I'm fighting a cold. Wow, excuse me. The entire Princeton euphonium line is dealing with the cold, so we all got it together. Um, I actually have not. Plenty of trombone, and um, we didn't even get that far. I mean, not even getting that far, but we didn't even get we didn't even listen to Jazz Euphonium. That's
Okay,
a
so
great point.
what I'm gonna do here is you take that link and send it to your students. I'm gonna put and I'm making a note on my notepad here. Um, Ed Jazz Youth links.
Yes, that'd be great.
Uh, I'll do that. I'll make a playlist actually, uh, because that's something that I've wanted to do anyway, and I'll add it to your page under uh, kind of suggestive listening for your students for those that
Mm,
are in jazz, for euphonium, like specific jazz. I think that will be a huge value add. There we go. We
I
talked about
agree.
that in the podcast segment. Uh,
There you go.
Always looking to add more value to our community. So yes, perfect. So with that covered, I can't wait to see what they even think and say as they're listening to their own instruments' capabilities.
Of course.
Oh,
Of course.
fantastic!
Yeah.
Fantastic.
It was thinking about like why I never introduced it. I was probably, it's all still a learning process for me too. I was probably just so enwrapped in actually teaching jazz and how swing works and what jazz is even about. That I didn't even get to like, this is what, you know, jazz can sound like. I don't even think I got that far with some of those students. So that's a great venture to start going towards. I love that.
Awesome. And then getting to hear their karate master. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that, Garrett.
Oh yeah.
Um, and to bring that with the jazz, oh man, I'm getting some really crazy ideas for commissions for you, especially with, yeah. Oh man,
That sounds exciting.
I'm putting feelers out there because for those that are in our cohort, we have a beautiful conglomerate of composers, well versed in many facets, and to combine jazz and karate with euphonium. Just saying
Wow. That's yeah, that's something.
that is. I'm
I'm excited to
curious.
hear where that one goes.
So am I. And yeah, I'll just leave that right there. So anybody who's interested, reach out to Garrett or to myself, or just leave a comment below. Hey, wrote a piece that was inspired by this podcast with Garrett Dexter. And you can call it Dexter's Jazz Lab. Uh,
I love it.
there you go. There's the full circle on that.
Has a good ring and everything. It's perfect.
Awesome. Anyway, so I think that's a okay. Let's finish up eighth grade, and I think that's where it's going to segue off into the second series here for your living history series. So, what was it like going into eighth grade and picking up? And it sounded like you're getting some steam behind you with euphonium.
Most certainly. Eighth grade is when stuff really started to pick up. I was already a year into lessons with Ray Henriksen. Yeah, so this would be my second year taking lessons. And this is when I really started seeing what I could do performance wise. We had an honors band at the school. The year before, I was in the honors band as the last chair euphonium, kind of squeaked in. And I was playing under an eighth grader. And I actually didn't even get to play the concert because I got a concussion. So yeah, that was a whole other thing. I forgot about that. Wow, I love going
Well, I
back to
mean,
this.
concussions, you kind of tend to forget.
Yeah, right.
Just
Maybe that's what it
saying.
was. And then
Was
eighth,
that because of karate?
no, it was completely isolated incident, just freak accident. Yeah. But in eighth grade, my lesson teacher recommended me to audition for region band, junior region band. Junior region band back then, I believe, was only sixth through eighth grade. I think sixth through eighth grade. Um, Now they call it intermediate region band, not junior region band. But I auditioned for that, and I didn't know much about it. I didn't really know what solo repertoire was like, so of course I had to learn solo rep. And we were already working on scale, so I felt good with that. And I didn't know much about sight reading. we didn't do a lot of sight reading, focused a lot on the solo piece. It was a tough first solo piece that I learned. It was right out of the Rubank solo books, but for me, went up to high G's and I was like, oh my God, never seen these before. And so that was a huge learning curve for me. But I didn't do a lot of sight reading, which nowadays I love doing with my students and by myself. It's like practically half what I do as a performer nowadays, just sight reading stuff. Um, but I auditioned and they allowed 3 euphoniums in, and I got fourth. I was the first one out by a few points, and of course, sight reading was the one. I had the best solo score. Scales were somewhere middle of the pack, but my sight reading score is what plummeted because I didn't do a lot of it back then. So, it wasn't too hard feeling. I knew it was my first go, whatever, it was cool to see that it was that close. And I ran with it. I loved it. I think 8th grade is when I really got serious into the euphonium. 7th grade, the lessons were great. You know, I obviously was working out for me. But I think 8th grade was a great segue into freshman year when I was like, all right, this is starting to become something, career wise, potentially. Um, but 8th grade was that big year for me, I would say.
So I want to dive in because most people don't have that realization in the middle school, junior high like time frame in conglomerate blah, can't talk conglomerately. There we go. Um, Speaking with the cohort, it's not something that's typical for pre high school.
Mm-hmm.
What 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 do you think? Can you contribute to that kind of ideal? Was it Ray Hendrickson and Mr. Jeff Conrad and their experience? Okay.
Yeah, I would say a lot of it I owe to Ray Hendrickson, still a role model in my life. Just his teaching aspect. I think that's the year when he brought me down. And he's actually a very old family friend. When I was a baby, when I was like a toddler, his family would actually watch me as like a daycare system.
Uh-huh.
So he knew me when I was like really young. Um, so there's family connection ties there too. And he actually, I think that's the year he took me to see a Rutgers studio recital out in I forget where they used to perform. I think Montclair area. And that's when I got to meet Aaron Vanderweel, and I saw some, legit euphonium players. I remember he had a stack of CDs in the back of his car of, Tormod Flat and Stephen Mead. And then he said, and his, I was with his mom and his family at the time, and he said, pick a CD. I was like, what? And I thought that was the coolest thing. I
Oh, no
picked,
way.
oh yeah, it was, for me, it was, the coolest day ever. Um, I took notes of every piece that was played on the recital, and I looked them up. New England Reveries, I remember, was on that program, and I thought it was so cool because I think they played the audio with it. And I picked the Tormod Flatten CD, still my first euphonium CD. I think it's the Into the Deep one. I don't know if I think that's what it's called, Into the Deep by
Sounds right.
Tormod Flatten.
Yeah.
And that was my first, like, other than Aaron Vanderbilt, my first professional euphonium player that I dove into. And Ray would have me, he would write 3 professional euphonium players on my lesson book every week for me to listen to, and he would tell me to write down on YouTube what piece I listened to them play on YouTube. So it was, like Stephen Me, Devondre Thurman, Tormod Flatten, et cetera, et cetera. And every week for like a good while, it'd be 3 new people. Like Bastion Balmain, you can keep going on, Glenn Van Louis, all those guys. Um,
Do you still
and
have
so
those? Do you still
I
have those
think
lessons?
uh oh, do I still have the list?
Yeah.
Oh, I do have them somewhere. I
That'd be
keep all my
epic.
lesson books. Yeah. Oh yeah, I have them. I think over here in my old lesson bag. Um, but yeah. I started doing that with my students, and I think that helped me just get obsessed with euphonium and just get obsessed. I mean, I practiced so much in like 8th grade through high school. Like that's when it started. Um, Yeah, I mean that's I think Ray was a big part of that. I think me being involved with the jazz band and the honors band kind of showed that I was becoming a role model for the seventh graders. So I think that inspired me to work harder. And Jeff Conrad, being a tuba player, worked with me pretty closely and trusted me. And even though I was some middle school goon, he clearly saw something in me. Yeah, I always really appreciated that, and I appreciated Ray. Um, Seeing something in me as well, and inspiring me and giving me that experience, which was really, really cool.
Well, not to mention all the times that you said that you went to him and wanting to quit, and he kept on you, and wow, we wouldn't be sitting here.
Yeah, I always thought about that. Like if he just let me go, I could be doing something completely different,
I think it would
so
have to deal with karate.
something. I always wanted to be a teacher actually, for a long, like even since like middle school, like probably be a teacher. And I always liked history, so I thought maybe it'd be a history teacher. And then this might go into the next segment, but freshman to sophomore year, I was like, you know what? I'm probably gonna be a music teacher, and that's kind of how that came about. So
Well, now that for those that listen to the podcast and listening to how and maybe drawing the same conclusions about the connections and the potential masters, wow, because we didn't cover that part of the segment there of your connections not only with Aaron or with the Princeton brass band, your connections with Rutgers. That's just really, really, really fantastic.
oh yeah, yeah, and I have a lot to owe to Rutgers and what Aaron's done, and it clearly, I wouldn't be here today if Aaron, didn't work Ray up, as he did, and Ray's still an amazing, musician. So I owe so much to Rutgers over the years. I know I didn't go there for my undergrad, but might be going there for my master's. And obviously, I trying to give back to the Rutgers community and the Euphonium studio there. So I'm very, very thankful. So
So let me ask you, as we kind of segue into kind of post production in a moment here. So those that are watching this right now, find the podcast links at internationaleuphoniumsummit.com/Garrett, Garrett. I love saying that. It's so cool. Dash Dexter, Dexter, not like my last name or first name. Uh, wow, that's really cool. Okay, so last question before we jump into the post review wrap up is: did you get a chance to listen to during your middle school years, even high school, the New York Staff Band?
I did not get to listen to the New York staff band. Probably honestly wasn't until I got back from Indiana that I was able to, I think until after Indiana that I was able to hear them live. I've heard recordings, of course. But yeah, yeah. I think it wasn't until after.
I can't wait to dive into that first experience then. So that's right as you're getting this job where you're at North Plainfield.
Correct, correct.
Okay, that's have you taken your that would be an awesome field trip.
Oh yeah, there you go. That would be really neat. Really neat.
Man, that would be awesome because I know Fort Dix band doesn't exist anymore because Fort Dix doesn't exist.
Mm.
The military band that's up there, it was up there uh, decades ago. Uh, so, kind of dating myself on that one. Well, that was even many years after my service. Anywho, as we segue into the after interview, find us next time on uh, Garrett's personal International Euphonium Summit link that will be provided. And if you're one of his students, thank you for taking him up on listening to the segments and getting to know who he is, as well as the band parents. Y'all are in amazing hands at that school in school district, and to be a part of something really spectacular, really first of in series. And wow, just taking in taking note of where we were almost 2 hours ago as we started this podcast slash recording, and a lot of ground we covered. I hope I hope to see, you know, as your marching band grows over the coming years, Garrett, that that authenticity and that duality of melding your experience and your personality, that experience with karate and that respect and honor system that has been instilled and ingrained as you are a black belt, into molding that into the who you are as a teacher. I can just imagine what that looks like, but to
Hmm.
see that in the coming years progress, and even seeing the students that go on from where you're at.
Of course. Yeah. I mean, I said it in the first segment, the first half of the recording that we did, but yeah, like respect and you know um and just you know being respectful, having procedures, honor, all that stuff is extremely valuable to me, and what I try to instill in my students already, without mentioning karate. So going one step further, I think it would, because I always tell the students that whenever we step outside the school, even when we're in the school, we represent the program and we want to have the best image of ourselves as possible. And I think they do a great job at that already. They're definitely some of the hardest workers in the school, the most highly achieving, and the most respectable. So I love keeping that trend going, always. So
And just to mention, for those that are watching this and haven't listened to the podcast segment, we spoke about a couple weeks ago with the Rutgers marching program, marching day with the high schools, and Garrett spoke very highly of the etiquette that the band showcased, being the last to leave, cleaning up after all the other bands, and just top notch. And so go back and listen to the podcast once it's listed, and you'll hear what I'm repeating now. Man, this really rich. So with that, thank you so much, Garrett Dexter, for joining us for your first in series on the Living History series. Um, Thank you so much for taking the time.
thank you for having me. Always a pleasure.
Everyone, thank you so much. You know what to do. Like, subscribe, follow, and share this with local music programs and your favorite, other local euphoniums, musicians alike. Thanks, everybody.